The plot starts at a busy railway station. Hundreds of people, including a father called Zheng, are rushing to board a train. He has arrived with his little kid and adolescent daughter, but something strange occurs before he takes his train. The station personnel hurries to prevent an unknown train from entering the station since it is not supposed to be there. Everyone goes to check on the second train once it stops. When they open one of the compartments, a swarm of dead corpses and rats pours out. Much to their dismay, Jing notices the horrifying image and feels concerned that something horrible is going on. A gangster begins a battle with him as he continues to peer through the glass, insisting that he is in his seat. Jing apologizes for the inconvenience, but the bully continues to harass him and his daughter, Wei. Fortunately, before things get out of hand, a kind Samaritan named Dushan steps in and guides the father-daughter combo from there. Following the little incident, Wei praises Shan for his assistance, while Jing begins strolling about the train. The other passengers suddenly notice a weird sound coming from the ceiling, and the camera zooms in to reveal that the ceiling is infected by a horde of rats. Jing suddenly encounters his long-lost daughter Ling with her husband, who is now an army major, in the next compartment that houses the elite. He approaches her fiercely, stating it took him years to locate her. However, as he begins to force Ling to accompany him, neighboring army officers seize control of Zheng. Her husband asks whether she knows the guy, and Ling lies and says she doesn't. As a consequence, the police take Xing to a dark room and shackle his hands. He is being punished for attempting to attack the major's wife. The cops and Xing then see another guy imprisoned in a corner. One of the cops goes to check on him, but he's shaking strangely. He has been bitten by the deadly rats. It is apparent as he turns. The ferocious rats suddenly rush the room and begin crawling over the cops. Meanwhile, Zhang's kid is drawn to a strange sound and pursues it. He soon notices that something is moving under the fabric, and when he cautiously removes it, it turns out to be a cat on the prowl. A lady inside another compartment becomes irritated when she hears a squawking sound from the ceiling. As a result, she requests that her husband take action. In response to the request, the guy pulls out a stick and begins beating on the train's roof. Unfortunately, he breaks up a tiny ventilator, allowing thousands of rats to flood inside. They quickly assault and kill all of the passengers. Meanwhile, the major and the train's captain learn about the assault and order their passengers to leave immediately. They look to be fully aware of what is going on. Ling and her husband flee to a secure compartment after packing their stuff. In the dark chamber, Jing watches in horror as all of the army officers are consumed directly in front of his eyes. Fearful that he may be next, Jing begins to offer his farewell prayers, but nothing occurs after a time. This is when he understands the rats are terrified of the sun. As a result, he snatches the key to his chain, which is laying on the floor, and unlocks himself. However, while outside, Jing notices that the compartment is filled with dead corpses. Rats are also crawling all over the floor. Fortunately, he slowly rises over the chairs and escapes. Jing tells the passengers about the poisonous rats after reaching the next compartment, but they mock him. They believe he is hallucinating due to drugs. Jing takes his daughter, Wei, and transfers to the next compartment as a result to the insults. Just then, a wounded guy comes at the preceding compartment's entryway and collapses dead on the ground. The other passengers, who are now nervous, see something moving beneath the man's garment, which turns out to be a rat. Thousands of rats burst through the entrance and attack everyone in sight. Shan attempts to guide as many passengers as he can into the next compartment, but as the rats approach, he locks the door. Simultaneously, the cops shut the other compartments behind them, leaving the passengers on one side to perish. Ling, concerned for her family, attempts to persuade her husband to unlock the door, but he refuses. Jing, his children, Shan, and another man are now locked in the compartment, with no way out. To make things worse, thousands of rats have banded together and are trying to get through the barrier that separates them from people. Our heroes look to be doomed, but Shan discovers a means to escape through the roof just in time. Jing and his children are also dragged from the cabin, but just one person survives. Unfortunately, he is too late, as the rats rush through the door and murder him. Meanwhile, because to the mounting danger, the train's captain devises a strategy to separate the later coaches. This is the neighborhood where Zheng, his family, and hundreds of other individuals live. Ling is completely opposed to the proposal, but the major disregards her desires and disconnects the carriages. When Shan observes the cars separating, he swiftly runs to the first side of the train and saves Wei as well. However, when it is Zheng and his son's time to leap, the train begins to blast from the rear. Thankfully, the father-son combination takes a leap of faith at the last second, and Shan manages to grab them. Zheng and the party arrive to their compartment after a time, while Ling and the other passengers are lamenting the death of their family members. Ling is delighted to find her family alive, but she avoids approaching them owing to her strained relationship with her father. In the next scene, one of the passengers falls unconscious on the floor. He was bitten by the rodents and is now sick. it is discovered. As a result, the cops decide to isolate the afflicted individuals and keep them confined. Jin constantly checks on his children to ensure their well-being, but he is saddened when he discovers that his kid has been bitten. Recognizing that his kid does not have much time, Jing informs the passengers that he works in the health department and was just assigned to get medication that may minimize rodent illness. The medication is kept at a hospital in the neighboring district. However, the captain does not want to halt since the rats are too hazardous and it would be a waste of time. This splits the crowd into two sections, and amid the chaos, a thug pulls out a revolver and kidnaps the captain. He then insists that they come by since everyone needs medication right now. With no other option, the captain accepts. The train arrives in the area after an hour, and Zheng, Wei, Shan, and 3 other passengers volunteer for the mission. The train conductor allows them 2 hours to return to the station. He informs them that if the time limit is exceeded, the train must leave for the sake of the other passengers' safety. The party eventually arrives to a town, but it has been utterly devastated. As they go, they see a heap of dead corpses strewn across the roadway. To go to the hospital, the gang has no option but to walk over the dead. They come into a horde of rats eager to feast on anything comes their way after crossing the bodies. Fortunately, they are also shielding themselves from the sun, and when Jing realizes this, he proposes that his company stroll on top of the surrounding pipes. Unfortunately, a man loses his grasp and falls. Jing and the others can only stand there and watch as the guy gets consumed by the rats. Meanwhile, a local boarded the train and informed the passengers that the rats are afraid of daytime, but they might be more harmful and lethal at night. When the passengers realize this, they demand that the train continue its journey and that they evacuate as soon as possible. Suddenly, black clouds begin to engulf the town, blocking off the sunshine. This causes the rodents to emerge from the shadows and pursue Zheng and his company. Unfortunately, another guy is killed as he falls. The remainder of the gang makes it to the hospital, but Shan suffers a leg injury in the process. Inside, they are accosted by someone, but Zheng quickly calms him down, telling him that they are here for the medication and intend no harm. When the guy hears this, he identifies himself as the place's custodian and takes the party to the hospital storage. They come across millions of rats squeaking, creeping, and waiting for their next meal along the route. The crew then scares the rodents away with fire. Back aboard the train, the passengers and the thugs who are still holding the captain and his crew hostage begin to believe that the rescue team will not return or that they are already dead. As a result, they decide to start the train. However, this simply leads to a conflict since some people are still hoping Zheng and his party would return with the medication. Meanwhile, an elderly woman, bored of all the noise, walks to the front door and opens it. Thousands of rats enter and assault the passengers as a result of this. Ling, who is with her brother, can only observe from a close compartment. Jing and the others enter the warehouse and come upon a massive nest of rats. Jing chooses to walk inside by himself and fetch the medication. Fortunately, the gang is able to smash down the warehouse entrance and escape. They then join the trader who has them imprisoned in the hall. However, it was discovered that his son and wife perished while he was overseas. While he is in grief, Zheng and the others quietly take the medication box and rush outside. They then climb into a parked vehicle and drive away while a swarm of rats pursues them from behind. Suddenly, the gloomy clouds part and the sun shines through. As a result, the rats flee into the darkness, and the troop escapes the town alive. When they get to the train, they see the lifeless corpses of the passengers laying about. Zheng and the others begin to mourn, believing that their family members had been slain. But just then, Ling and other policemen emerge from their compartment, much to everyone's pleasure. Unfortunately, their joy is cut short as the weather changes again and ominous clouds hover over the village. The rat swarm emerges from the shadows and makes its way towards the train. Suddenly, one of the cops grabs Zheng's medication box and strikes him in the head. The officer attempts to flee after being bitten all over his body by the rats, but Shan catches him and collects the medication, which he subsequently gives to Zheng. The rats have nearly arrived by this point, so everyone rushes back inside the train. Unfortunately, Shan is unable to return due to the injuries he received earlier. Before getting consumed by the rodents, he contacts Wei and confesses his affections for her, adding to his terrible end. After a time, Jing begins injecting the medication into the diseased ones, and things begin to improve. However, the train abruptly comes to a halt, and the passengers discover that there is a blockage on the track ahead. Jing instantly motions to his other passengers to clear the passage together, but no one wants to put their lives in danger by walking outdoors. Jing is forced to walk outdoors alone and attempt to move the enormous cart. When his daughter, Wei, and the rest of the passengers see his commitment, they join him. At the same time, one of the criminals attaches explosives to himself and lures the rats. When the rats surround him, he sacrifices himself and kills them, allowing the passengers plenty of time to clear the barricade. The thug's brave gesture inspires the passengers even more, and they eventually manage to move the carriage. However, as soon as the train begins to move, they learn that the present route leads to a dead end. As a result, Jing must manually execute the handle to change the track. When he finishes the work and prepares to board the train, he learns that the tracks have altered once again. This is due to a broken handle. As a result, Jing must hold it until the train switches tracks. When he has finished the mission, he races after the train while a swarm of rats chases him from behind. Unfortunately, as he is about to enter, he trips and injures himself. By this point, the rats are too close for him to flee. The film's concluding scene depicts Ling and Wei lamenting their father's inability to make it to the train. Jing is quickly overrun by rats, but he dies relieved that he was able to rescue his children.